because you want to do good. You want to make a positive contribution, and you're nosy and you want to know where your taxes go. So there is the solution to get rid of these requirements to every time you want to build something, particularly if you're advocating for things that are well grounded in facts, well researched, and sensible, that the two larger parties have difficulty advocating for because their corporate donors don't want these things discussed.
Carey, welcome to the World XP podcast. How are you, sir?
Younger and better looking again today, my friend. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't you tell the people kind of who you are and what you do, and just for those listening, I think there's a special election kind of near where I live, in the area of Virginia where I live, and in the kind of local government, and I think this was a good opportunity to bring a different perspective on politics to you guys, and so I'm hoping to get all of the candidates running in this race. But I think, like I said, it's a good opportunity kind of to differentiate local versus national politics, and maybe give you guys some tips or tricks on how to get involved at the local level and make probably more real impactful change rather than everybody being very concerned with what is going on in DC, however you feel about it one way or the other. But just for those listening, to set the table, Carey, the floor is yours. Tell the people who you are and what you do.
Thank you so much. I'm Carey Chet Campbell. I'm an independent veteran running for local county office in Virginia, Fairfax County. So in the big picture, Virginia is about 8,800,000 people. Fairfax County in Northern Virginia, adjacent to Washington, D.C., has a population of about 1,100,000. So that's 1/8 of the population. So Fairfax provides not only a large portion of the population for Virginia, but a large chunk of change for the state coffers. This election in Fairfax, we have 10 seats on the county board, 9 municipal districts. In other words, the county is divided up into 9 geographic areas. Commonly, folks call that municipal district. Braddock District is right in the heart, right in the center of Fairfax County. This special election that's coming up, it's on December 9th. Early voting starts tomorrow on October 24th. This is necessary because our incumbent congressman, who I knew for many years because he started as a civic association president, and I'm a member of our civic association, the North Springfield Civic Association board. I've been that for decades. Also serve as chair of the Planning and Zoning Committee on the board. So Jerry Conley was, God rest his soul, Jerry was the incumbent congressman, and at age 74 passed away. So that required a special election for Congress. His former chief of staff became his chief of staff at a very young age, I think 24, and served as his chief of staff for a decade, and then left and was elected to this Braddock District as Braddock District Supervisor. So, and his name is James Walkinshaw. And so James then ran for Jerry Conley's seat, and in fact, Jerry picked him as a successor. And that makes perfect sense. They had worked together for years. They were all very well known in the community. And James Walkinshaw was elected to Congress 76% to 24%. It was only a two-way race. I am also state chair of the Independent Green Party of Virginia. And in Virginia, for decades, we have run independent Greens or independents in most races, local, state, and federal. So that's what happened that required Braddock District now to have this special election December 9th, starting tomorrow. So that's where we are geographically. That's as far as government, how it functions. A key point, Eric, for folks to differentiate between national government, so the Congress, the president, the Senate, And state and local government, we are required, and state and local government, I'm an accountant, by the way, to balance our budgets every year. So we cannot spend at the local and state level more than we take in. So that's a very key point. Now, in Fairfax County, our annual budget is 11.1 roughly $1 billion a year. That's divided up into two chunks. One chunk is called the general fund, $5.7 billion. And that chunk pays for our schools. About 51.6% goes to the schools. And by the way, where that money mostly comes from, 81% of it, it comes from the property taxes we pay on our real estate, on the houses we own. That's where most of the money comes from and where it goes. And then 25% goes to our police and fire departments, and the other 25% human services. So that's the general fund. Remember, 5.7 billion. Now the rest of it goes to what's capital infrastructure. And this is for bigger projects, building schools. For example, one of the things that I advocate in my platform to create a revenue source, and this is a challenge for schools and counties all across the United States and in fact around the world. How do you pull in the revenue to pay for your schools, to pay for your police, pay for your fire department? And what's being done around the world very effectively is putting solar panels, renewable energy, on your county buildings, on the schools, and then installing geothermal heating and cooling. This cuts the geothermal heating and cooling. For example, I put it in my house, it cuts your cost by 2/3, your energy cost by 2/3. And then you buy the solar, put it on there. And then, of course, once it pays for itself, and it does that quickly, then your energy needs are free. That frees up lots of money for your schools. And it also avoids raising the property tax rate for homeowners. Now, I've been active in North Springfield and Fairfax County for almost 4 decades now. And I have knocked on many, many doors, which is the fundamental of local politics, state politics, federal politics. You know that. Well, people coming to your door, knocking on the door. That's the best place to learn real politics and what people really care about. They're home, they're comfortable, and they will be candid and generally polite with you. Only on occasion have I had one of those guys from the Muppet Show. Hey, get off of my lawn! That's how and that happened this year. It made me laugh. One of the other, I'm shifting off, but another funny story. I knocked on a lady's door this year. She said to me, "Honey, what in the world do you want to do that job for?" So I just love that. So I'm talking about the budget. I'll come back to it. But capital infrastructure, those are the two pieces of the budget. So the other big thing that gets elected in local office for this county office, and I'm sure it's true wherever you live, the names are different. Like Ohio, they call it county commissioner. Indiana, I think they call it county commissioner. Here we call it county supervisor. In DC, it's a city council, but these functions are all very similar. So that's how the money is brought in, how it's spent. The other major function on the Board of Supervisors for Braddock District, for all the municipal districts, is picking people to serve on commissions. So we have a planning commission that plans what we're going to do, planning and zoning. We have a transportation commission that decides what we're going to do with our transportation. So the big issue is about what gets built, where, and when. So those are the big functions of local government of the office that I'm running for. I'll shift now a bit into my bio. I mentioned I'm an Air Force vet, and
Before we go into that, let's do actually, and before I forget as well, let's do the question from the last guest, and then we can get into kind of a bit of your backstory, some of your platform, what you want to run on, And you mentioned some of it, of course, but then we can go from there. And I think you might have touched on it a little bit, but the question from the last guest is there a conversation you've had over the last few years that has stuck with you, and if so, why?
Well, I think I've already mentioned it, the lady at the door, because I thought that was poignant and charming. And I grew up in that kind of community, a Southern community, culturally Southern community where people call you honey. And so, or sweetheart, and so I just thought that I found the lady very endearing, very kind, and very sympathetic. And it was also a sincere question. And frankly, a question that I've often asked myself, particularly in preparation for running this time, because I know what goes into these jobs. I know the energy and the concentration that is expected. And the number one thing that people expect, I expect it, we all expect it, is excellent service, constituent citizen service, customer service. When we contact our local government, we need them to immediately be responsive, be empathetic, and respond to the issue. And if they can't solve the issue, get us quickly to someone who can. You know, we're sort of, as Americans in general, we're programmed that way with our relationships in the business community, with our professional relationships, and so I thought the lady's question was just superb and kind, but so smart, and to see how much you have to put, at least for me, I put almost 4 decades of heart and soul into this, into politics and recruiting candidates, hundreds of candidates, collecting hundreds of thousands of petition signatures all around the state, especially in North Springfield, is where I live, where my house is for 37 years, my residence is, and then all around Fairfax County. So I know the streets. I know the houses. I have memories from 30 years ago of a door I knocked. And in fact, that happened this year. I knocked on a door and I remembered when a baby was in the window, and I asked about the baby this time, and she's 17 now. So, it's so you put a lot into it. And why? Why? Because you want to do good. You want to make a positive contribution, and you're nosy, and you want to know where your taxes go, and you want to have an impact. And we have had the Independent Greens in Virginia with hundreds of candidates across the years. We've had a tremendously positive impact. The central focus that we have had as a state party across the decades has been more trains and less traffic, walkable, bikeable, pedestrian, rail-friendly communities. And we've advocated for so many things that are now reality. Rail to Dulles, the Potomac Yard Metro Rail stop, rail to Stafford and a new Virginia Rail Express stop there, rail to Roanoke. Well, you can take the train to Roanoke and soon all the way to Blacksburg, the university down there, and rail to Newport News, light rail in Newport News, all of these things. And there's a dedicated new track bridge that's going to be built across the Potomac. All of those things we've advocated for successfully, and they are either now reality or going to occur. And the positive lesson, dear listener, from that is that you can have a positive impact. All you got to do is get up off the couch. And I would encourage you to run as an independent or independent Green Party candidate or a Green Party candidate, because there's no cash hurdle you have to leap. If you want to run for the two larger parties, you usually have to pony up money in front. There's a fee, usually several $1,000s to run in the party. Of course, at the lower level, it's less than it is at the Senate level or U.S. Senate level. But you can, by being on the ballot, the people know your name. The person that's elected, if you're not elected, knows your name and knows what you want. Let me give you one quick story about a young James Walkinshaw and current congressman. We had Joe Odo on the ballot for Congress I guess about 20 years ago as an independent Green Party candidate in the 11th congressional district. And young James came in as a surrogate for Congressman Conley. And don't hold me, it could have been 16 years ago, 20 years ago. There's so many stories. And we had always advocated for fiscal conservatism, balance the budget, pay off the federal debt. And one of those key factors is installing an auditable accounting system at the Pentagon. And when young James walked in the door, I introduced myself and he said, "Oh, yeah, the Independent Greens, an auditable accounting system at the Pentagon." So that illustrates what I'm talking about. Not only do the office holders know what you're advocating for, particularly if you're advocating for things that are well grounded in facts, well researched, and sensible, that the two larger parties have difficulty advocating for because their corporate donors don't want these things discussed. You know, they occupy us, and we already see it in the Braddock District race, sadly. They occupy us with this adversarial, sensationalist advertising of, um, you must pay the rent. I can't pay the rent. You must pay the rent. I mean, that's vaudeville, but it's the same tone. You know, that guy is the worst thing since Frankenstein. Oh, no, that lady is the worst thing since Dracula. And all of this silliness that distracts us from the policy that we should be discussing, like more trains, less traffic, walkable, bikeable, pedestrian, rail-friendly communities. Let me pause, Eric, and let you.
Yeah.
Throw.
So as the Green Party, or I'll say third party to kind of broaden the scope of the question, we've seen oftentimes third parties get pushed out of various races for various reasons. Most notably, I think the big networks changed the rules of the presidential debates, so RFK Jr. was not allowed on stage, and then they agreed on just to do Trump versus Biden and things of that nature. And so, at least in this last national cycle, the Libertarian Party at their convention, they made enough noise on certain issues that they became almost a voting bloc that other candidates needed to go speak at, or at least they made enough noise. So the question going off that is, how are you able to influence, even if you are not necessarily, your party is not necessarily winning elections, but garnering enough influence to, right, you mentioned several policies that were enacted, or projects that were enacted through your influence. How are you guys able to exert that influence to push things I think we can all agree are probably good things? We want sort of less emissions in the air and more walkable and bikeable things, right? To help with the environment and things like that. And I think we can all agree that if things are walkable, then that's probably, if you walk places, it's probably better for your health as well. So how are you able to kind of put together, maybe whether it's a coalition or not a coalition, but how are you able to exert influence in a way that enacts change at the local and the state level?
So quite simply, by putting candidates on the ballot. On the ballot, in the debate, defines the debate. Once you're there, your themes, they have to respond. They have to respond to what you're talking about, particularly when you're positive and constructive. Now, on the national level, and I really want to stay with this race, and I need to also remind that I'm running as an independent candidate, an independent veteran in what is legally a nonpartisan race for local county office. And it's very important to emphasize that I'm an independent candidate in this race. While I have over decades worked with independents and the Independent Green Party, and libertarians over the years in the state, where we've found common ground. But the key place where you can multiply a positive impact is being on the ballot and being in the race. That is the one key thing how I would answer your question. I also want to pick up on something you said, Eric. data is conclusive and unequivocal that people who walk and bike and ride rail or commute with a bus have lower rates of heart attacks, have lower rates of diabetes, have lower cancer rates. And that is not just a matter of, and of course, are much safer. You know, what is it, 50,000 Americans killed every year on the highway? I was out going door to door just a couple days ago and saw a catastrophic wreck. And it's 50,000 people, is it, killed every year in America on the highways, 500,000 injured.
Let's Google it. But anyways, keep going.
It's so much safer to take trains, so much safer to walk, to bike. And the economic impact is important for Fairfax County here. The Fairfax County of Transportation did a study where protected bike lanes were built in the northern part of the county. And what they found is there were less car accidents because then the cars slowed down. And in transportation, that's often called a road diet. So when you slow the speed of the automobile, you have a safer environment. So because they build these protected bike lanes, and that's key, you can't just paint a stripe on the road and say that the bikers are protected or the cars are protected. You need a separation there. And what the Fairfax County Department of Transportation showed is people felt safer, drivers felt safer, bikers felt safer, and businesses in that area saw an increase in foot traffic. And that means an increase in revenue. And that means also an increase in revenue for the county because the businesses pay more into the county. So this walkable, bikeable, pedestrian, and rail approach, more trains, less traffic, is an economic winner. It's a winner for health. And you cut the overall societal cost for medical expenses. You know, we have this big national issue right now about increasing premiums for our healthcare costs. So this helps us cut down healthcare costs. It is a comprehensive, impactful, positive solution in Braddock District and all across the country, really. Also, we're advocating for bringing bike share to Braddock. It's helpful that it's alliterative in that way, but bike share they have in Washington, D.C., they have it in Arlington, Alexandria. If you're watching someplace around the world, you can look at a map and see all those are right around Fairfax on the eastern border and the southeastern border of Fairfax County. We need to bring that into Fairfax County, into Northern Virginia Community College, at the 3 Virginia Rail Express station stops. We need bike share. We need it at all of our 5 high schools in Braddock District. We need it at our schools. The average automobile trip that an American takes is right around about 3 miles. Now, that's a very bikeable distance if we build the proper environment for it, protected bike lanes. Instead, up on Chapel Hill Road, right there by Northern Virginia Community College, coming off the hill, the traffic is so fast, people are afraid. I've knocked on the doors there. People are afraid to let their children out. People are afraid to have the kids go out and bike. We can change all that. Granted, big auto, big oil, big asphalt for what, 85 years, almost 100 now, have dominated our politics. But we need to cut these massive subsidies to big oil, big auto, and big asphalt and move in a healthier way for a healthier society and a more economic growth. Now, we've seen what it's done for Paris. We've seen car-less, car-free communities being built now, and how that cuts your cost for housing because you don't have to build all of this parking. Professor Donald Soup's great book, The High Cost of Free Parking, goes into great technical detail about this. But quite simply, when we build more roads, we induce more traffic. And we have 70 years of data that can scientifically confirm that for us. But all you have to do is go out and drive and see that fact for yourself. So that's why more trains, less traffic, walkable, bikeable, pedestrian, rail-friendly communities is the positive way to go, and why I, as an independent veteran for Braddock District, am running on this positive platform.
I have a couple of questions based off that. Um, you mentioned kind of the big lobbies for the various industries, auto and oil and asphalt and things like that. Um, so I've got two questions that go off that, and then I'll kind of skip to the third question before I forget. But how much of the roads within Fairfax County is actually controlled by the county, vice the state, or federal, right? We've got there's interstates that go through the counties and things like that. And other big roads that kind of transverse wide swaths and big distances. And so the first part of that question is how much of the roads are actually controlled by the county if the county was to undertake a project like that. And then the second part of that question is how much do those lobbies actually influence the local politics in Fairfax? Like how much, well, how much pushback would there be from those types of industries and lobbies? And then kind of the third part of that is, well, they say, well, Carey, that sounds great, but if you're going to shut down roads to build bike lanes and other things, traffic is already horrible in Fairfax and outside DC. I think it's probably at or around tied for the worst traffic in the country with LA maybe. Wouldn't that make traffic worse and everybody's life more miserable and more cars and less space? And is that really worth it? And how much money is it going to cost to actually take on these projects? And does that mean my taxes have to go up because the budget, et cetera, et cetera? So there's two parts to that question, basically, which is like the cons of the project potentially, the objections that you might get from a voter, and the second part is how feasible is it actually to get it done in a reasonable amount of time without pushback from big companies that might not enjoy a project like that.
So the first thing I wrote down is how many roads in the county are controlled by the state of Virginia. Virginia has its own way with this, and most of them, yeah, most
So
of them.
would you have to go, would this have to be a joint Fairfax Commonwealth of Virginia project, or does Fairfax have the authority to take on something like this on its own?
So yes and yes. That was a two-part question. And so yes and yes. And let me let you know that I believe it was 2022, 2021, that the Board of Supervisors budgeted $100 million for pedestrian improvements. So that proves one point. All the candidates that we had for decades before that, advocating for that, I give them credit for uh, pushing for that $100 million, and I believe it's $100 million over 10 years. It's over several years. It's not 1 year. And one major issue now that people are concerned about, that's putting it too meekly, people are upset about, people are angry about, is that these pedestrian improvements are not moving at the pace that they should. And there's a process. And I want to also, this is infrastructure. And infrastructure doesn't happen overnight. Um, it, we're still a Republican democracy, and we have institutions that were bequeathed to us by our forefathers, foremothers, our those who came before us, and we have to work within that framework. So, excuse me. So this is long-term stuff. Anytime you're going to build something, and that's one of the key points. We put together a full list of all of these pedestrian improvements that have been approved. That means they went through the whole zoning process. Everything was approved and funded, but they just haven't been done yet in Fairfax County. So we have a list of those, and we're going to keep pushing for that in this Braddock District race and beyond. Let me come to the second part of your question that you would ask about. You put it nicely, Eric. You put it kindly and generously. Pushback from the lobbies. Big oil, big asphalt, big auto are not going to stop, right? I mean, we saw these massive. I haven't owned an automobile in I think it's over 40 years. So I do know that there were tax credits out there. I don't know if the new administration stopped them, but tax credits to the subsidies that we give to big oil, big auto, big asphalt. You're talking about trillions of dollars over the last 100 years. So it's an absolutely, it's an unequal balance. It's like when I played high school football at 136 pounds at fullback, and that guy playing middle linebacker from Richmond was 6'8", 280. And when I ran the zero play right up the center and he hit me, I saw lights, so it's an imbalance. There's your sports metaphor for the imbalance between those big industries and what they've pushed for. But just because go ahead.
They push for it at the federal level, of course, but what I'm getting at is how much impact does that actually have at the local level? I know Fairfax County's budget is big, but at what point, right?
They will contribute right now to the other two candidates in this race for me for Braddock District. We don't have to. The deadline for filing our first report is December 1st. So none of the candidates will know how much the other candidates are spending until we get to that deadline. But I will guarantee you that the big interests that I'm talking about, big oil, big auto, big asphalt, will contribute to both of those other two campaigns. My campaign, Carey Campbell, independent veteran for Braddock District Supervisor, will not take their money. So they push constantly at every level, and they have their employees in the county also can come out and represent their interest, and they do intensely. So that's their right as citizens also. And they have done this effectively, as I say, for nearly a century.
The reason I ask is because not that Fairfax County is I mean the budget is big compared to most local governments, but compared to state or national governments, it seems like if I'm running Exxon or Ford or one of these companies, I'm not particularly concerned with a local government somewhere. Like what is the mechanism in which they're using, right? Is it they've got local kind of, I don't know, to use an analogy from the TV show The Office, they've got regional managers that are kind of pushing down the this sort of influence, or like how does it work?
Oh, gosh. You know, um, there was a property over there by the hospital in Merrifield that for years had been owned by someone. And you used Exxon as the example, and that how much do they care about local government? A lot, because Exxon bought that property, and now they own that there in Fairfax County. It's just right outside of what we call the Beltway or 495 there in Merrifield, over by where the hospital is. So of course they take great interest because anything that they want to do, if they want to make alterations in the property, they have to come to the county. Their zoning has to be appropriate and it has to be approved. If you watch the county board meetings, they come before the supervisors, all sorts of folks do, to get their business projects approved for zoning or shifts or changes. It's a vital function of the county board of supervisors. And where those large companies and business traditionally work through, in the case of Fairfax County and most counties around the country, I would imagine, is the Chamber of Commerce. So we have a local Chamber of Commerce in Fairfax, and it is key and it is a player in every race, whether it's County Board of Supervisors or House of Delegates or State Senate or Lieutenant Governor. So um, they are involved, very much so.
Okay, that makes sense. You mentioned before about there's a bunch of projects that have been approved and funded already, but they haven't been started or they're in various points of delay or whatever word you want to use. Why is that the case? And what sorts of things can actually be done about that?
It's a great question. One of the possible causes is not adequate personnel to process it in the county government. And we have a whole list of possible causes that I could look up, but I don't have them off the top of my head. But that's a key issue, and the logistics of it. You would be amazed at. I was looking at the cost of one of the we just had in North Springfield at the corner of Backlick and Leesville Boulevard. And when I say just, for somebody who's been in North Springfield 37 years, it was either last year or the year before. We had a new pedestrian protective island built there. And studies show that people will walk more when these are there because they feel safer. And one of these, a comparison one that I was looking at just last night that's going to be built, the cost is $300,000. And the question I asked myself is, my goodness, why does that cost so long? And when I looked at the North Springfield project, because I'm on the board, we talked about the North Springfield Civic Association board. We talked about that at the time a great deal, and there was a great deal of concern about why it was taking so long. And so those are issues that in any project, if you've ever had your house renovated, or you've ever wanted to add a den, or you've ever done any project yourself, a couple of things generally happen. Takes longer, costs more. And we see this in most projects. Same way with as we mentioned as I mentioned before about that's also true of the roads.
So someone might say, okay, well, if you want to add in all these bike lanes and rail extensions, and these are costly projects, and what you've described with either there not being enough personnel to process these sorts of things, or red tape and bureaucracy being a delaying factor. Someone might say, well, Carey, if it's going to take 15 years for this project to even come to fruition, and it's going to cost all this money, and the road is going to be under construction for 10 years, and all it's going to do is increase traffic, then why would we want to do that? And kind of, I'll add this part in as well. When you mentioned kind of permitting and things from the county, I've got a friend of mine that runs a business, and he has been trying to get a permit from the county for about a year for something like, to not out him specifically on the show, but there's no reason why it should take as long as it is for the type of business that it is. And technically, he's not really supposed to be fully open yet, and that's costing him revenue, and he still has to pay rent on his brick and mortar location where he does business, and all these things. When you might say, well, for what? Like you mentioned there might not be enough personnel to process these things. My question is, why is there so much processing needed in the first place? And I understand for a project as big as maybe a road expansion, you would need a little bit more oversight and things of that nature. I'm not advocating for a complete kind of deregulation, but at the same time, I don't think it's really controversial to say, or if you were to go ask people, "Oh, does the government do things efficiently?" I don't think anyone would be like, "Oh, yes, they are running, they are the most efficient organization that there ever was." So to go back to your like kind of what you're advocating for, someone might, well, Carey, why would we want to pay all this money to have a project that's never finished? Like, so for me as a voter, or for other people listening as a voter, at a
That's not
local
fair.
at a
Pay all
local.
the money that for projects never finished. I mean, you're setting up a straw horse there,
So look, I'm not trying to set up a straw man. I'm trying to illustrate a point that people are irritated with bureaucracy and red tape. And I don't think that's controversial to lay out. The project will get finished, of course, but when and at what cost? People might say there's extra traffic, right? I'm not trying to say that this
no,
project
I think you are
is
setting
not
up. Oh man, no, we can,
okay.
yeah, we can go at each other on this, and let's do. I think it's baloney what you're saying. Um, the Why do we want to do walkable, bikeable, pedestrian, rail-friendly communities? Because first and foremost, they save human life. First and foremost. Uh, Second, because the data shows that they grow revenue. They increase the value of our homes, uh, our businesses, and increase revenue for our schools, police, and fire departments. These are all noble. So if and we know with 70 years of data that building another lane simply induces more traffic and fills it up. So um, yeah, yeah, I'm deeply and strongly convinced that that's the case. Um, I, and to to complain about permitting for something, really you need to be more specific. I've had that happen as a member of the Civic Association board. People come to me with those concerns, and we go to the county. And I can tell you that in the experiences I've had, the county government has always been efficient and quick. They assign a number when you send them an email. They assign a number. Uh, Normally, I have them call me back right away, next day, or if it's a Friday, call me back on Monday. So I have not personally, either on my behalf or for the behalf of constituents in North Springfield, I have not had that happen. I have not seen that happen. And I'm not obviously, as someone who has 45 years of federal service to this nation, I'm a pro-government person, and I'm not a libertarian in favor of chaos. So I've seen my lifelong government generally work well. Is it imperfect? We're all imperfect.
Yeah. No, and like I said, I'm not saying that what you're proposing is inherently bad, nor should we not do it solely due to permitting things. What I'm saying is, to somebody that might say, well, permitting is an issue, and you answered the question exactly as I would hope for somebody that would stand on what you believe in, and that's really what it is, right? I'm not here advocating one way or the other. My role or my objective here is to understand why it is that you believe what you believe, and kind of ask questions that come to mind and maybe something that people would say. And so um again, I'm not I'm so let's kind of go on to the next sort of point, which is I think a lot of people have been worried about housing prices and affordability of rent and other things of that nature. And again, a lot of these questions also come from a place of, at the state and local level, I don't know who's responsible for what, and I'm hoping to get educated in that myself, which is why that last question followed on the back of, well, who's actually responsible for these projects? Is it Fairfax County or is it the Commonwealth? And what who takes that role in there? Um, so I want to jump to the housing stuff, and I know that some of the other candidates are running on making housing a bit more affordable, but I don't. Well, I'll just leave it there. I don't understand how that can be affected from a local level to a large extent, especially if you have a real estate market that kind of is what it is. People are going to pay, or people are asking for the prices that they're asking for. And then from a kind of landlord perspective, um, they are charging the rents that they are charging. So what can be done at the local government level to actually affect that?
The smartest thing that we can do is get rid of parking minimums. We have across Fairfax County, across Braddock District, and across the United States, 85 years of a failed zoning policy. And all of these vast seas of empty parking lots, uh, the high cost of free parking drives up our housing cost. A recent study of where they got rid of uh, minimum parking requirements in Denver showed a housing cost reduction of 12%. I have a full list of, I don't know, 20 or 30 of those examples, but I don't have them off the top of my head. So there is the solution to get rid of these requirements. To every time you want to build something, a developer wants to build something, you have to have X number of parking spaces. The positive solution ultimately, it's in the phrase, more trains, less traffic. How do you get to less traffic? You get to less traffic, you know, less cars. So car-free, car-less communities. That's what we have to build in Braddock District and in Fairfax County in the future. 3 years ago, they built two new projects out in Western Braddock District, close to George Mason University. At least they were discussed then in the cycle. Um, Even longer. I'm going to say so 6 and 2 years ago when we had election cycles. And we advocated then, our campaign advocated for carless, car-free development because the interesting positive idea that we had there at George Mason University is you have an integrated community of the young folks going to university, and then older retirees, and that dynamic synergy that could grow out of that. Now, studies have shown that younger folks have higher rates of accidents. So if we can build an environment where um, where they're not required to drive, they don't need to drive to get to what they need essentially, uh, then they're safer. And the same for older folks, senior citizens, uh, diminished capacity to see, diminished capacity to hear. Uh, and car-free, carless community meets both of those needs, and then it drives down the housing costs. So the key word there is affordability. It makes living um, uh, makes residence more affordable for both the college students and for the retirees. So that's the positive revenue producing thing that we could do in Fairfax in Fairfax County to increase affordability.
So, okay, that makes sense. I haven't heard you mention really any other platform issues other than um more was it more trains, less traffic?
Walkable,
Why?
bikeable, rail-friendly communities. Yeah.
Oh,
So
we'll
schools.
say less cars generally as a campaign kind of platform. Why is that? Like if you go on some of the other candidates' websites, they've listed off a handful of things, um and obviously it's not going to be the same list as it would be for a Commonwealth or for national level. But I think are there I would think, and I could be wrong, I've not knocked on everybody's door in the same way that you have, but I would think that there would be other things that people would be concerned with as well. But it seems like, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seems like it is your opinion that a more bicycle friendly, pedestrian friendly, rail friendly community would solve a lot of those other problems, whether it's a secondary effect or tertiary effect or down the line. Is that a fair thing? Is that a fair assessment of how you're approaching this?
That's a generous, very generous of you, Eric. Thank you. Yes. But the number one issue that people spontaneously come up with the doors of schools. And Fairfax County, and I'm running on, as I have, and as we have, strong schools. Fairfax County has excellent schools, has had as long as I have been here. It's a gold standard. Fairfax County schools are respected across the state, across the nation, and internationally. I know that we have family in Europe. We go there often, and people know about the quality of Fairfax County schools in Europe. And my wife is Peruvian, so in South America. So that these outstanding schools that we have in Fairfax County must be protected, and we have to prepare the next generation with and equip them with all the tools that they require to meet the challenges that lie ahead for us. 20 years from now, when I go into the hospital, I want that doctor who graduated from Fairfax High School or Annandale High School to be tip top and know everything she or he needs to know. So my campaign for Braddock District in Braddock District is all about keeping the schools strong. And I've mentioned we can uh, all local governments are revenue starved now. And the other major issue that people talk to you about at the doors is the tax rate. And they're concerned about that. And these have a symbiotic relationship. Without the current tax rate, we don't have the funds to roll into the schools. So beginning in January, a new meals tax. So if you eat out at a prepared meal at a restaurant, at a hotel or something, there's going to be a new 4% tax there. All of the adjacent counties to Fairfax have that already. So that is going to roll in to the budget. And it was why the board in the most recent case did not raise the property tax rate, but lowered it by a quarter point. Nevertheless, our actual taxes that we paid on average $499 more in the year. The average Fairfax County taxpayer paid that more because the property appreciated. That's not going to happen in the coming year. I just got a assessment of the value of my home tonight in the email, and it has dropped 2%. And I think we're seeing the impact of what's going on in Washington, D.C. on the 50,000 federal workers, and that's rippling through all of Fairfax County and is going to hit the entire budget uh, and require the county board of supervisors, the office I'm running for, Braddock District Supervisor, is going to require hard cuts or finding new sources of revenue for these tremendous and wonderful schools that we have in North Springfield, where I've had my house for 37 years. That school, as I'm sure in every other neighborhood in Braddock District, is sacred. Our schools are sacred to us. We send our small children there, and we have to find more sources of revenue to keep our excellent schools in Fairfax. And renewable energy, so solar panels on all the buildings, geothermal heating and cooling, those are taxpayer money savers and revenue producers. And at the very start of the podcast, I talked about the two pieces of the budget, the general fund, 5.7 billion, and the rest up to 11.1 billion or so goes into the capital budget. So in the capital budget, oftentimes that's bonds. So we would need to go before the Fairfax County voters and do bonds to install all of that, all of the solar rapidly on all the schools. Now, I put in geothermal heating and cooling, 51 solar panels on my house, batteries years ago. And of course, it's been a tremendous savings for me. I saw a story in, I believe it was the Fairfax Times, just a few days ago about one of the high schools putting on 37 solar panels. Now that's good, 37 solar panels, but I have 51 on my little 1,200 square foot house, which makes the house a pro-energy house. It produces more energy than it consumes. So this Braddock District campaign is focusing on that issue, schools and how we create the revenue. Now, let me shift to strong police and fire departments for a moment. I've
Can I
mentioned.
pause you before we go on to that?
Sure. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
You mentioned the word protect in the schools, and I'm gonna throw this out there as kind of I don't know if this is true in Fairfax, but my algorithm is telling me that people are homeschooling more and people are going into private schools more. I don't know how true that is in Fairfax in particular, but that's at least what I'm seeing anecdotally. You mentioned the word protect. What do you mean by like protect them from what? Or if it's not a specific thing, if you just meant that generally, then that's okay too. But
So I mean that we must protect uh, quality schools. The quality we must keep our quality high, exceptional, excellence, and that takes resources. And we have to provide our educators those resources and our communities those resources. And simply put, that means money. That means revenue. And so, can we raise the tax rate? People at the doors are telling me no. All right. And that's not new. It's a challenge. So we have to look for these other clever, innovative ways to produce revenue, and that protects our schools and thereby protects the students.
okay, that makes sense. Um, okay, where do you have thoughts on the homeschooling thing, or is that really not a
Oh,
Fairfax
thank you for being,
issue?
yes, and you're right. You're right about that. Of course, we saw that huge wave in COVID, right, where the kids had to stay home anyway, and then folks essentially, many people were de facto homeschooling. But then we saw the data coming out of COVID, and it wasn't good, right? And my daughter-in-law, as a matter of fact, is a school teacher. My son is a firefighter, paramedic. So I'm very familiar with these things right up front. So the homeschooling is a factor, and it has inched up according to my memory of what I've read over the years. My campaign manager, Joe Odo, he homeschooled both of his children. So it's something that is done. I wanted to mention also, what our campaign is focused on is keeping our police and fire departments strong.
Hmm.
And so that also requires um, the revenue. And I am the 30-year union member and an elected executive vice president of my union local, and I am a contract bargaining official. And those skill sets are going to be very important going into the next year when we begin our contract bargaining anew for all of those folks, fire, police, human services. But when you call the police and you need them, when you call the fire department and you need them within seconds, uh, your tax rate is not on your mind. And I could tell you that from personal experience. My beloved Aunt Ida, 98 years old, is sitting right here behind me. She is the light of our life. She is a blessing and a joy every day. And Ida, we've had to call emergency from time to time when issues arose. And I absolutely never cared about the tax rates. I'm happy to pay the tax rates to provide all these services. Of course, not everybody has had our experience, and so they have those concerns. So our campaign not only focused on more trains, less traffic, walkable, bikeable, pedestrian, rail-friendly communities, and the positive economic growth that that brings. Every dollar you invest in rail creates $21 in the economy. We're also focused on strong schools, and the central way that we grow the revenue that we need for the schools is to, in a massive way, install the renewable energy that will pay for itself and also finance all of the additional resources that we need without increasing the taxpayer rate or the amount of taxes homeowners, residents have to pay. So our campaign, Carey Chet Campbell, independent veteran from Braddock District Supervisor, is all about those things. And human services, finally, the last 25% of what the general fund goes for. These are very, very important services for elderly folks that need visits, need Meals on Wheels, people who need emergency housing. There are such a vast array of noble things that our predecessors have instituted in the county to help those, the least of those, as the Bible puts it. That is our responsibility. So all of these things are part of our campaign. One key thing that the predecessor in Braddock District, James Walkinshaw, did to advocate for and to publicize are the private partnerships, private-public partnership with the churches, particularly along a Little River Turnpike and Braddock Road, to bring in the homeless who are freezing in the wintertime. And that's a program that, as Braddock District Supervisor, that I would advance and perpetuate. I am a person of faith. My Aunt Ida, I see her strong faith every day. Her father, my grandfather, was a minister. And so we have a duty to the folks that are around us. That admonition, of course, one of the commandments is to love thy neighbor as thyself. It's a very high standard. Jesus set a very high bar. So like all the other ones, we have to work toward it. But as a politician, as a person asking for my neighbors to give me this responsibility to serve, I want folks to know that that's where I'm grounded. And I have seen so often, door to door, people come, folks that were isolated or lonely or needed help or just needed someone to listen to them. And it's been an honor and a privilege to spend a good portion of my time over these years, uh, talking to neighbors and visiting with them, and I have loved it, and I've learned so much. Our campaign for Braddock District Supervisor is first and foremost about excellent service, constituent service, to respond to what people need there and then when they come in the office, when they email, when they call. And if we can't solve their problem, we find or address their issue, we find someone who can help them.
Amen. Amen to that. Can you speak a little bit about, you mentioned at the very beginning of the show about, unlike the federal budget, the the county needs to maintain a balanced budget. Um, you also mentioned taking out bonds to finance some of the projects or proposed projects. Can you walk me and everyone else through kind of how that works? 'Cause my understanding of a bond would be kind of taking on some sort of debt. But can you walk everybody through kind of how those two things fit together and how that actually works?
Well, Eric, you said it as well and as concisely as as anyone possibly could. That's a bond is taken on debt. That's exactly right, and we pay it out over a period of time. Uh, that's a very important thing for Fairfax County. We have a triple A bond rating, which means that we can get loans at a very low rate. DC just lost their triple bond rating. They're down to double now, as I understand it. So that is crucial. Um, the budget question, and I am, because of my longevity, because of my experience as co-chair of the Fairfax Federation of Citizens Associations, I served as co-chair of the budget committee several years, and my experience is accounting, and it fascinates me. I look at the county budget every year, and both of them are, if you can see, 2 inches high. The books, and they have line by line items, so you can look at each person's job in the county, see what they're paid, and see what their cost is. You can look in there and see the long-term pension cost if you just take the time. And fortunately, I have a passion for it and an interest in it. Not only are we required to, and that discussion of balancing the budget in the county goes on every day. It's constantly going. The county executive is reviewing that. The budget staff is constantly looking at it. The county exec has called for a 5% cut for all departments in the coming year. The fire department folks that I have talked to at the fire station have told me what the problems that last year's cuts have created. And of course, since my son's firefighter paramedic, something that touches us personally. Um, so these budget issues, for any citizen who wants to get engaged and pay attention, you can be involved in that every day, and every day something is changing. Um, so not only does the county have to balance the budget every year, but we're in what's called now the carryover period. The fiscal year closes out June 30th. The new fiscal year for Fairfax County starts July. And so the county then comes back, the budget office, and goes to each department and says, okay, you were budgeted this money. What do you have left? And that's called the carryover. And so they come back, unlike the federal government, by the way. I think that would be probably a good idea for the federal government. And I will point out to you that the Independent Green Party of Virginia has called for requiring federal budgets balanced every year at the federal level. So then the carryover comes, and you review the carryover and where that money should go. Now, one of the very smart things the current Fairfax County Board did, the county maintains a 5% reserve. So of that 11.1 billion, they hold 5% of that in reserve. Well, now that they came back and said, listen, because of these hard times that are happening, because all these people are getting fired, we're going to raise that reserve to 10%. Very wise, very prudent, because the next fiscal year is 2027. We're in 2026 in Fairfax County by name right now. So we're going to have that that cushion, and we're going to need that cushion. So that's the local level budget and how that carryover works. Now, one of the things the county executive recommended was hiring, with the carryover monies, 59 new positions. And he also proposed eliminating, I believe it was 80 positions that, don't hold me to that number, I'm not sure of it. That were empty. You know how you have a position and there's not a person there. I would not have as Braddock District Supervisor, I would not vote for hiring these new positions right now. A part of the carryover, again, making the point of our current campaign and the impact immediate that it has, county exec called for more spending for out of the carryover for pedestrian, uh, walkable, bikeable, pedestrian, rail-friendly communities. So more spending in that area. And that reiterates a point I made much earlier in the podcast, that if you get in on the ballot in the debate, you help to define debate and you impact policy. So if you're a citizen and you care about something that's going on, get engaged, get involved, get on the ballot, be well informed, and advocate for a positive, constructive solution. Avoid the sniping, right? Avoid that culture that the two larger parties have developed, right? You're a bad guy, you're a bad guy, and stay focused on the positive solution. We're all neighbors. We're neighbors before the election. We'll be neighbors after the election. Let's work together. Let's get something constructive done for our children and our children's children.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I've got two, well, two and a half kind of last questions for you. The first one is, you're running against two other people. What is something that is on their campaign platform that you agree with, or something that you like about both of them?
Two things that's on their platform that I
So
like about both of them.
yeah, something either whether something you admire about them personally, or something you agree with them on kind of their campaign platform, what they're running on.
Well, the lady from the lady from Signal. I'm sorry about the lady from Signal Hill currently serves on the school board, and I admire her commitment to the schools. I've mentioned how important the schools are in our campaign and how truly, I use the word as a person of faith, the word sacred schools, knowingly. I know from going door to door how important the local schools are to people. They care about it. Generations have gone there. In some cases, in North Springfield, 5 generations I know of have gone there. So and I know that I admire her commitment to her. She has an autistic child, and I admire the work that she has done for her autistic child. So those are, and that's what motivated her 5 years ago or so, or whatever it was. She's a newbie compared to my 37 years to get involved. And so I think that's very important. We have a dear friend of our family um, who I saw him from a baby grow up. Now he's in his mid-20s, and who is autistic, and I saw all of that firsthand. I was involved in that, and Fairfax County Public Schools did a spectacular job for him, and also that key part of the transition out of school and into the employment at 18, 19. So those are a couple of things I admire about her. The other candidate lives just a few blocks, just a few blocks from my house. We have had a competitive relationship for years. When he came into the Civic Association, he changed things, and I was unhappy with the changes. But he was effective and I admire that, effective in as a political person, he was effective in getting the votes on the board to do what he wanted to do. So anybody who can build a coalition to win a majority, that's worthy of respect. The other thing being close neighbors, everything I've heard, fine husband and father. And also, as you will see, he's a public relations guy, so he has written for a long, long time, and so and before I was an accountant, I was a TV news anchor for 15 years and a writer myself, so gifted writer.
Very nice. I like doing that when in these sort of situations because, again, like you mentioned about the sniping and all these other things before, at the end of the day, we're all just people trying to do what we believe is right for our communities and families and stuff. So I like doing that. I appreciate those answers. I think they're very good answers. And then last kind of question, if you had to leave the voters with one thing or kind of any last final thoughts for people listening, what would that be?
So I will just mention one other thing about the other gentleman from North Springfield in the race. The thing that I'll mention about him in the race is that he and I have always been competitive. So, I'm an athlete from high school, and so that competition it is welcomed.
Fair enough.
So, what I would leave folks, what I would leave folks with is I've I'm a blessed man. I've had a lifetime of service, both in my community, almost 4 decades. Uh, I have served our nation in the Air Force and the Army Reserves. I'm in my 45th year of service. I offer positive, constructive solutions for our community. First and foremost, strong schools. We must educate the next generation, and we must look to the future and find new ways of doing things. And we're seeing where renewable energy installed on our schools all around the world have cut taxpayers' burdens and have increased revenue to protect our schools and provide revenue for our police, fire departments, and human services. It's just economic good common sense. It's funny, I'm trying to answer two phones here at the same time. And I encourage everybody, this is a great nation. We're Virginia's a great state. Life is a blessing. We have an obligation, a civic responsibility to our neighbors and to our democratic republic. We can have a positive impact. We just got to get up off the couch and get in the race. And I do it. I've encouraged hundreds of others to be candidates for decades, and I walk it like I talk it. We can have a positive impact, and we have a duty, morally, spiritually, ethically, to not just complain, but to offer positive solutions. And that's what our campaign for Braddock District Supervisor, our independent veteran campaign for Braddock District Supervisor is all about. I'm Carey Chet Campbell. If you're in Braddock District, I ask for your vote. You can go to careychetcampbell.com. That's the website. CareyChetCampbell@gmail.com if you want to write. There's even a donate button on the CareyChetCampbell.com webpage if you want to go there. I am not accepting corporate contributions. I am not accepting corporate contributions. Regular folks, you're welcome.
Very nice. One of the things that I like about kind of what you've said today is the transparency of where the tax dollars go. I think speaking from kind of conversations I've had with other people at various levels of government, it's like, okay, I pay taxes, where does it go? And one of the things about what you've kind of laid out today is you've got a plan about, yeah, like you're cognizant of people maybe can't handle a tax rise at the moment because of other extenuating circumstances, but at the same time, we want to improve the community and those things cost money. And the renewable energies and those sorts of things, I think, are great solutions to that. And yeah, really enjoyed the conversation. For those listening, link will be in the description as always for all these videos. Go check it out if you're interested. Obviously, he mentioned his contact info. Go right, get involved, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace. Thanks for tuning in to the World XP podcast. If you want to watch another episode like this one, click there. If you want to subscribe, click there.